Week 2 in the books. Sens clean sweep last week. Let's go. We also had the Leafs winning 2 out of their 3 games, and we had Phil the Thrill playing in his 990th consecutive game. So lots of news around the NHL. We're going to get into that. Josh Norris going down with an injury. He's going to be out long term. We're going to talk about how that impacts the Sens. How are you feeling this week, Kijo?
Pretty good. I'm excited for week 5 between the dots. Let's keep this rolling.
We're now on episode 5 of Between the Dots. We've been having fun with it. It's been good so far. No complaints. Lots of laughs. A lot of good times. Speaking of good times and things going well, Sens last week, sweeping all their games. That was good to see. How about your Leafs, Kijo? What did you think of them last week?
Oh, it was all right. Like we know in Leafland, it's a roller coaster ride. So we're on for the ride regardless, going up and down. And
Samsonov's been playing well for you guys so far. There's a lot of positives to look at.
There is. He's been solid. There has been some solid points with the Leafs, but things that, like every team, need some improvement, so we'll get into all of that.
Yeah. Well, something that your team and my team have in common, Sens and the Leaf, is that we're both dealing with injuries right now. Muzzin going on the IR for you and Josh Norris on the IR for us, so injuries is the one thing that can really kill a team's chances in a season, so fingers crossed that our guys stay healthy for the rest of the year.
It's tough with those injuries too, like you mentioned Muzzin as well as Norris. They're not like a few weeks and we'll see them. Like I think both those injuries, Norris for sure, but I'm thinking Muzzin as well is going to be long term for both of those guys.
Hopefully our teams can just keep rolling even without them. You know, the other guys just got to step up. That's what's got to happen in their absences. So speaking of guys staying healthy, Phil Kessel too, 990 games in a row. He started off, well, all the way back with Boston, but that 990 games started when he was with Toronto. So it's good to see him still getting it done.
Yeah, I saw the first game actually of that streak. They were playing Tampa, and this is when Hedman and Stamkos were rookies. Kessel comes in with the Leafs, steps over the blue line, and gets absolutely rocked by a Tampa defenseman. And he left the game for a little bit and came back, but I just thought it was funny. First game of that streak, he's getting destroyed, but yeah, 990, that is insane.
Yep, and he scores goal number 400 too in that game as well, another milestone for him. It's funny, there was, I think it was one of the on-ice guys was talking with him, and they asked him, oh, like, you ever felt days where you just don't want to come in and don't want to come to work? And he's like, oh yeah, I feel those a lot of times, but still ended up coming in. So 990 games is quite the accomplishment.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't throw out the every day when I was in Toronto, because Phil's a guy that likes to, from what I've seen, likes to say it how it is. So
yeah, he's quite the unique player too, like in terms of his body composition as well. Doesn't match the traditional hockey player of 2022, but he's great. He's I'm a fan of his as well, so good for him for playing in that 990 games in a row. And we'll talk some Leafs and Sens now, kind of recap their week as we normally do. We got week in, week out. You want to start us off with the Leafs, Kijo?
Sure, I'll start us off. The Leafs started their week off on Thursday, October 20th with a big 3-2 overtime win against the Dallas Stars. Dallas was still undefeated at this time. There's a big lineup change for this game. Robertson coming in for Malgin, hopping right onto that line with Tavares and Nylander. He gets 2 goals, including the OT winner. It's funny watching regular season games. You try not to get too hyped about them, but not going to lie, when Robertson buried that OT winner, I was very excited.
That was electric. That was electric. Yeah. I'll even admit that.
For sure. Yeah, that was awesome. Good for him there. On Saturday, October 22nd, the Leafs went to Winnipeg. They pulled out a 4-1 victory there. A couple more lineup changes again. The Leafs, if you can remember, last season had a little dust up with Winnipeg. Logan Stanley going off the ice, like throws his hands in the air, and then Scheifele post-game was like, is there anything better than beating the Leafs? And I think that was in the back of their minds. So the Leafs threw in Simmons and Clifford, to the lineup there, and oddly enough, it wasn't those two dropping the gloves. It was Robertson got hit at the line, and of all people, Morgan Riley throws his gloves off, goes after Morrissey, who hit Robertson, and that was good to see, sticking up for your teammates. No matter who's on the ice, you always want to protect the young guys for sure. So 4-1 victory for them there. And then Monday night, they were in Vegas. They lost 3-1 on the road in Vegas. They didn't look great in this one. They're in Vegas, so who knows what they're doing before the game. But I think Vegas really played them well. The Leafs like to attack altogether, and Vegas was standing them up at the line a lot, so they're having trouble getting possession in the zone because Vegas was shutting it down. So Samsonov was solid this week, though. He's the reason that Vegas game was close. He held them in it early, right off the start. Vegas was all over them, but he kept them in it and gave them a chance. So there was also a scary incident in that game with Sandin fired a shot and it went off Tavares' knee, and he was down for a bit. And it was, anytime you see Tavares go down, you think of that issue in the playoffs when he got hit by Corey Perry. But it's looking like he's all good, and a 2-in-1 week. Can't complain that much, but lots to build on, that's for sure. What do we got for the Sens?
Yeah, it was a solid week for the Leafs. A very solid week for the Sens. We won all 3 of our games that we played. First one was against Washington on Thursday, October 20th. It was a home game. That one was really good to see the end result in that one. But to start the game, we got off to a bad start. We were down 2-0. We gave up 2 power play goals in the first period, but then we stuck with it and we scored 2 power play goals in the second, both of them by Drake Batherson. I love Drake Batherson. I love him also because he's rocking a mullet right now, but just great player. And in past years with this Sens team, is they would give up 2 goals and they'd turn over and give up and they wouldn't push back. So it was really good to see them push back that game. They ended up in the third period scoring that go-ahead goal. In the third period, it was all the Senators that game too. In total, that game we outshot the Caps 45-20. We beat them up physically too. There was a shift where Kelly, Watson, and Kastelik just all laid a guy out within 15 seconds. So it was really good to see the Sens starting to find that identity of a really good offensive team that's also a quick strike offensive team with very physical players to it as well. Forsberg's also been really solid for us. He was solid that game, and just a really good team effort that night. Tyler Mott was solid. DeBrincat got his first goal that game, so it was good to see. But yeah, credit Washington. They played a good game still too, and you can see why they haven't missed playoffs in 6 years. They're just a little banged up right now with Tom Wilson out, Nick Backstrom out, Connor Brown out, and Kuznetsov was also suspended that game. So game 2 for the Sens past week was against Arizona. That was at home on Saturday. And unlike the Leafs last week, the Sens took care of business and beat the Arizona Coyotes. We beat them 6-2. All the lines were gelling. Unfortunate, though, that game, Josh Norris hurt his shoulder on a face-off. He took the draw and immediately grabbed his shoulder, and he went down the tunnel right away, threw his stick. You could tell he was really, really upset by it. It's the same shoulder that he'd hurt before. Originally, they said he'd be out for 2 weeks-ish, week to week. Now, as of the other day, we find out that he's going to be out long-term, most likely for the remainder of the season. Huge blow to the Sens. I don't know if you have any comments on that.
Those injuries are tough when you see it's even like the same shoulder. It's like you think...
Yeah, sad to see.
You think everything's fine, but unfortunately when there's an issue that happens, a lot of the time it'll be a reoccurring issue, and a young guy goes down for what looks like the entire season that you mentioned. It's just tough for him, tough for the Sens. Hopefully they can keep going without him, but yeah, it's tough for Josh Norris.
Yeah, so, and kept going without him is what they did. They ended up going into Dallas, or we were home to Dallas on Monday night, and we won that game 4-2. And another one where we played from behind. And in that game, we actually started Hellberg, our backup goalie. It was his first start of the year, and he played really, really well, which is good to see as well. We had a slow start in that game. He held us in there, and until we started to find our game. And once we found our game, it was good. Brady Tkachuk scoring the go-ahead goal in the third. And honestly, I think we could be in the midst of seeing a big Brady Tkachuk breakout season. He was second star of the NHL last week, and he's just been fantastic so far. And this is the kind of things that we need to have happen, especially with Josh Norris going out with injury, is other guys on the team have got to step up. Tkachuk's got to play a bigger role. Shane Pinto, and the defense as well has got to play as a unit, and the goalies in net also got to be solid. Now, I mean, Josh Norris he's irreplaceable, but that just means that other guys have got to step up and play bigger roles and try to make up for it the best we can. So, and that's what we did against Dallas that night, where we got the win. Derek Brassard scored that game as well, so there's another guy that can possibly step up and help to fill some of that void left. But yeah, so it was a really good game all in all. Hellberg got it done for his first win as a Sen, and Sens are rolling. We've won 4 in a row now, so yeah, we're carrying that into next week now.
Funny stat here for Hellberg. He's the first goalie in NHL history to get his first 3 wins with 3 different teams. Little fun fact there for you.
Yeah, well, we got him off waivers, so... And it's funny, we also got Anton Forsberg off waivers, so I don't know why teams are giving these guys away for free, but we'll take them. So take those wins too. So it's a good week. Good week for the Sens, minus the fact Josh Norris goes down with an injury. That's too bad.
Yeah, like you said, it was a solid week for both teams. So let's look ahead at the week out, the week coming up for both teams. So Thursday night, the Leafs are in San Jose for a 10:30 Eastern start. That is just brutal. For you want to watch the Leaf game, you're going to have to stay up till at least past 1 for the finish of that one, so that'll be tough. But then they go to LA on Saturday for a meetup with the Kings, as well as Sunday they're in Anaheim to play the Ducks. So a little back-to-back Saturday, Sunday. Good to have lots of Leafs hockey on the weekend, so looking forward to that. Just a few things I'm looking for in those games is to see if Samsonov keeps up his good start, as well as see if Matthews can pot a few. I mean, even there was a chance in the Vegas game where he just got robbed, and normally there's chances that aren't going in for Matthews, and they normally do. So we got to see if Matthews can finally put a few in the net.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It'll come. He's just got to keep getting those chances is a good thing. So, but yeah, he's a slow start for him to the year by his standards. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think, like you said, though, he'll pick it up. He'll start putting them in the net.
Yeah. Sens this week, we have Minnesota at home on Thursday night. So Minnesota had that really slow start to the year, and they've won the last couple games. So you know they're going to be coming in hungry, wanting to get back to 500 hockey. So hopefully Ottawa can just put their best foot forward that night. And again, I'm going to be watching to see how we manage now without Josh Norris, and see, what guys are going to step up and what kind of things they're going to do. So I'm looking at specifically guys on that second line. Like DeBrincat's got 1 goal so far, and Giroux's been really good, and they've had good chemistry, but I'm waiting for DeBrincat just to have one night where he pops off and scores a few goals. Kind of like what you're waiting on with Matthews a little bit right now. I'm similarly waiting on the same thing with DeBrincat, but those guys are just born goal scorers. It'll come. On Saturday, then we play the Florida Panthers at 4 p.m. afternoon game. It's in Florida. So huge Atlantic Division game. We lost the one game earlier against the Leafs, which was an Atlantic Division battle, but then we beat the Bruins. So we're 1-1 right now within our own division. The Sens are. And yeah, Florida is going to be a good test. We'll see how we match up that game. And then Tuesday night is against Tampa Bay. So another big Atlantic Division matchup. Tampa Bay's been struggling a little bit. They're 3-4 right now, and I don't want to say like that they could just be worn down from the amount of hockey they've played over the past 3 years. Like they've had such deep runs, and this time obviously they could have a little bit of that Stanley Cup hangover because they lost last year. So I'm hoping that Ottawa just keep on rolling basically this week, keep the momentum going from last week, and hopefully guys like Brady Tkachuk have another good week, and we just need to, and obviously hopefully stay healthy, because injuries can really, really ruin the Sens' chances. Like right now, we luckily, I feel, have the depth on forward to cover the loss of Josh Norris. But if we have another guy go down, like Batherson, let's say, or Tkachuk, or like, then we start to look a little thin. And if we have a defenseman go down, we don't have too many guys who can come up and play instead of them. Like, so it's definitely like we need to hopefully stay healthy this week. Obviously, we can't control injuries, but fingers crossed.
Yeah, just a quick thought on Tampa there. So you think with Tampa how they had guys like Coleman and Gaudreau, and then those guys go get their big contracts, go somewhere else. And then in this offseason, they lose guys like McDonough and Palat. And eventually, I know they still have their core, but you wonder that eventually if you keep pulling little pieces out of this core they got there, eventually you wonder if they're gonna start to break down. And they're obviously still a very good team, and I expect them to do very good this year, but I wonder if that could be related to their slow start this season.
Yeah, it's curious to see how some teams have started this year. One of the other teams that have caught my eye is the Bruins. I had a feeling that they weren't going to be as bad as some people were thinking. Like, I think they were overestimating that loss of Brad Marchand until December, but he's already back at practice, and he's with the team full time, and they're looking really solid right now. Their only loss has come to the Sens, so kudos to the Sens for winning that game.
And the other side of it too is the Flyers. Carter Hart's 4-0 with a .950 save percentage to start.
Yeah, nobody saw that coming this year. So.
No.
I expected the Flyers to be right in the basement, so it's tough in the East, that's for sure. And all the games are even games against like New Jersey and Detroit and Buffalo, those aren't easy games by any means. Like every game's going to be hard to come by for points, even for Toronto's sake. Like they're tough games, they're not easy. So every team in the East, basically, even like a team like Montreal's had a solid start this year. Like, yeah, I
looked the other day, and the East standings, there was no teams below 500. The worst team was Montreal, and they were 500.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like, to stick on Montreal for a second, that Arbor Jacki, who in preseason I was saying is just a guy running around trying to make a name for himself, ends up making the team and making an impact too. Like, he's bullying NHL guys out on the ice, throwing around Zach Kassian in a fight, just making a difference, and that's good for him. He played St. Catharines Junior B a few years back and went on to the OHL undrafted, and then to the NHL undrafted. So you got to have respect for a guy like that.
Oh yeah, another little St. Catharines mention for Logan Thompson. That guy was at Brock, and now he's winning games for the Vegas Golden Knights. That's pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it's got to have respect for those guys that work their way up through the leagues and eventually get to the end goal of making the NHL. So, yeah, good for them. Yeah, so moving on now, we got a repeat segment, something we've done before on the show. It's Burning Questions, where we ask each other burning questions, some things that might be at the back of our minds, lingering, some things that need answering, and that's what we got here. So
the first question I have for you is, you touched on it earlier, but obviously it's a big problem now for the Sens. First question I have is, what do the Sens do to fill the void for losing Josh Norris for the entire season?
So I'm on the side of things where we don't need to panic, and we don't need to go out and make a trade, and we don't need to sign guys. I think we need to look within, and we got guys that can fill the voids. Just looking alone at our centermen, we've got Tim Stützle, we've got Shane Pinto, we've got Derek Brassard, and we've got Kastlik. Not to mention, we also have Ridley Gregg in the minors, who can come up possibly and play if we need that. I think we got to look within, and we got to see how that goes first. I think if we get Formanton back in the lineup, him signed, I haven't heard any news on that front recently, but get him back in the lineup, get some more goals back in there, some more speed, and we just got to have guys step up. So I think to fill the void, to answer your question, to fill the void of Josh Norris leaving, you're not going to replace him and get a guy who scores 37 goals. It's going to have to be other guys just elevating their games. Guys like Brady Tkachuk needs to have a career year. And this is if we want to make playoffs too, of course. Brady Tkachuk's got to have a career year. Drake Batherson, same thing. He's got to be point per game. DeBrincat's going to have to start scoring goals. I mean, it's nice to see that we've won 4 games so far, and DeBrincat only has 1 goal, because that means that other guys are getting it done right now, and that this forward group is really deep down the lineup, which is something that I had a feeling it was going to be this year, but it's nice to actually see that happening. Shane Pinto looks like he could make a case to win Calder right now, the way he's playing with 5 goals and 1 assist through 6 games. He's tied for rookie lead in scoring, and honestly, his pedigree coming into the year, it says he could potentially win Calder. This is a guy who was a 32nd overall draft pick, so he was a high draft pick. He won gold at World Juniors, having 7 points in 5 games. He finished second in Hobie Baker voting to Cole Caulfield, who gets a ton of hype, yet Shane Pinto, despite the fact he barely lost that race to him for that award, doesn't get any recognition. And he was supposed to be our second-line center last year until in the first couple games, where he was playing great those first couple games, he goes down with an injury, a shoulder injury, season-ending, similar to what Josh Norris has right now this year. So those are the guys who got to step up and get things done for the Senators now that Josh Norris is gone. And also, guys on defense have got to play well too, like Sanderson, and he's looking solid. Brandstrom's looking solid. So we just got to everybody to stay healthy and everybody to step up, because I don't think we need to panic and go out and get something that we don't want to trade away too many assets right now. We're in a comfortable position. Let's see the next few games, especially this next week, see how these guys that we got do.
I like it. What do you got for me?
If the Leafs were to make a trade right now, what asset would you like to see them get back in the trade?
Are we talking realistic trade here, or are we talking Patrick Kane to play with Matthews and Marner?
That's on the table if you ask me, because Kane's going to be a free agent. Yeah, I don't think that's off the table. There's been lots of rumors about Kane being traded and wanting out of Chicago, so I think that's realistic, I'd say. So Kane at top 6 forward.
So of course, I know it's funny you think a smaller goal scoring forward to the league. Keep adding those, because I know that Dubas likes to add the small wingers, but Kane I think would be sweet, just because seeing Patrick Kane in a Leafs uniform would be awesome. But the other one, I know he's hurt, but Chychrun, I would like to see Chychrun on the back end. We've talked about this before. You need depth, and I know the Leafs signed guys like Ben and Mete, but in the last game, and I know it's just one game and one play, but you see Mete out there and he just Amadio walks around him and scores to go up. I think it was a 3-1 goal and just kind of put the Leafs away in Vegas. And you got to have depth, but I think the experience would be huge. And obviously Chychrun's not a depth guy, but it would move the other guys further down the lineup. You wouldn't have to depend on Justin Hall as much as you already do.
Right.
So yeah, that would be awesome. And like I said, Patrick Kane, that would be sweet to see. I don't know if you'd put him with Marner and Matthews, but the amount of things that you could think about who he would play with and all that stuff.
Oh, well, you put him with Matthews, and they have that American connection. And Patty Kane and Willie Nylander are going to have to fight for who gets to wear 88 as well, if that happens.
Yeah,
and with Chychrun too, I like what you said about needing defensive depth. specifically come playoff time too, is when like it makes a huge difference. You need guys that can line match against other guys' top lines. Like your third pair has to be as good enough to match up against that other team's top line, because the second you throw out a Victor Mete on the ice, you know that the Stamkos, Kucherov, that top line, whoever it may be, is coming over the boards to play against them. So you need to have guys on defense to get the job done. So
I know it's tough too with Morgan Rielly. I love Morgan Rielly. Like I mentioned, he jumped in, fought Morris right away when Robertson gets hit. But the other good thing about having Chychrun would be he can be the defenseman on your number one power play.
Mm-hmm.
And Morgan Rielly, I think he is a number one defenseman, but he's not in that top tier. And if you put Chychrun on the ice with Tavares, Nylander, Marner, and Matthews, he's gonna rack up his points. And I think people could start talking about him, in the same level as like an Adam Fox or something. You know what I mean? Like up there.
Yeah. I think we got to see how Chychrun does coming back from his injury, and especially before you make a trade for the guy. Because I know he was rumored a little bit with Ottawa. He's been rumored with a bunch of teams. Like, no doubt, he wants out of Arizona. So, but before anybody makes a trade for him, I think it's a matter of like we need to see like if he's healthy enough to go, and what he can be like when he comes back. If that ankle injury is going to hamper him at all a little bit. So, those are good guys that you mentioned though for trade candidates. I think both of them could find their way onto new teams this year at some point. So we'll see where they end up at the end of the year. I got another question for you. Is what has been the biggest cause of the Leafs' struggles so far this year?
The biggest reason, I guess, for their struggles? Is that what that's what you're talking about?
Yeah.
It makes me think back to the Babcock era, sorry. Babcock error, that's kind of funny too. But yeah, the Babcock era. They're not starting on time. And that's when you think, why is your team not starting on time? You think about the coach. Is that Sheldon Keefe not getting them ready to start on time? The Leafs have been scored on first in most of the games to start the year. Honestly, might even be, they might have scored first in Winnipeg, but they've been scored on first a lot. And it's just, they've managed to win a lot of those games, which is good, but you can't start behind all the time. You can't be chasing the lead. And
for sure.
So I think it's that, and I don't know if Matthews and Marner needed to change, and it looks like we're going to see tomorrow night Kerfoot with Matthews and Marner instead of Bunting. So I don't know if teams are just used to what they do, and they think we don't have to pay as much attention to Bunting now. We'll just focus our attention on Matthews and Marner. So maybe getting Kerfoot in there will be good to shake it up. But yeah, the biggest reason I think is they got to start on time. As soon as that puck drops for the first period, you got to be ready to go, and you can't be chasing the game all the time.
Yeah, I agree. It's tough to come back and play from behind. Yeah, starting on time for sure. You can't play coming from behind every game.
Yeah, and it's not like they're giving up a ton. Like I know their defense isn't
elite
stacked, but they're not, or elite, yeah, but they're not. It's not like they're not losing games 6-5,
right? Or
like,
they're not winning games 6-5 this year either. So they have been lower scoring games, which is a good sign. Samsonov's played well in net for you, so we'll see.
Yeah, I just have the one more question for you. The question I originally had, you pretty much answered it. So for my second question, you almost answered it. Well, you did answer it in your first question, but I'll give you two options here. The first question is to choose from is Shane Pinto the real deal? And my second question, it's more just an opinion question. I don't know if you saw the video, but what do you think of the Arizona Coyotes playing in that rink? Right. They haven't had a home game yet, but they're about to. I think Friday's their first game. Like, if you're a visiting NHL, like another team coming in, what do you think about that?
Yeah. So I'll stick to that question because I did already kind of answer the Pinto one. But that Arizona rink is just an embarrassment to the NHL and to guys who've worked their entire career to make it to the show. The fact they got to come in and they have to dress in a dressing room that is made of pipe and drapes. It's not even a room. In minor hockey, I've dressed in better dressing rooms than that. And I can't believe the NHL is just so reluctant to just move that team. Like it hasn't worked since they've gotten there. It still isn't working. They're playing in and Phil Kessel's 1,000th game is coming up, and guess where he's playing it?
Oh no, Arizona.
Yep. And it's just he's playing it against Arizona, and it's just like a dumpster fire right now, and they gotta I can't believe they would allow the fact that they're even playing in that rink. It's sad. And honestly, I saw the video as well. It speaks for itself. You see that, and it's like, what is this? Yeah, it's bad. Yeah.
It is crazy to see that. It's just funny if you think about other sports. I know this was different because the Jays had to do it because of they
COVID.
couldn't cross the border, but them going to play in Buffalo. But imagine if this happened in the NFL. There's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way that a team would do that.
Yeah, they'd be the equivalent of having an NFL team playing in a high school stadium down there.
Yeah,
the equivalent.
I don't know why they don't move the team.
Yeah,
and there's so many options that would work. You move the team to Quebec City, that would be. I guess it's just Bettman doesn't want to move it out of.
He's believed in Arizona
into Canada,
he's believed in them. So he's believed in them ever since they've had a team there. It was his idea to move them there. We're sticking it out. I don't know, but they just.
But think about too. If you're Bedard, what does Bedard think right now? Is that where I'm going? Hope the drape doesn't fall when I'm getting dressed. What is that?
Yeah, exactly. Seriously. Hey, that's the state of the Coyotes right now. So
that was good for burning questions again, and let's keep on moving here.
Oh yeah. So we did this segment last week for the first time. It's called Connect the Dots. I'll read out the comments. Kijo, you just give me your thoughts on them. So first one, the comment was based on our post that we made with advanced stats, and specifically had to do with the expected goals for stat. He said, peep the Flames, because the Flames right now are third on that list in expected goals for. What are your thoughts on the Flames?
The Flames, we've talked about them a little bit, but with those additions in the offseason, a lot of people thought that they would be, without Tkachuk and Gaudreau, those are big losses, which they are. But Kadri and Huberdeau, I think, fill those voids perfectly. I mean, playing on the edge like Tkachuk does, you replace that with Kadri. He's also like that. And then Uyghur as well. You got Markstrom back there, solid. I think the Flames are... It's not even that... To me, it's not even that surprising because they had the good year last year, and I think it's good to see them where they are, and hopefully they keep on doing well.
Yeah, and Huberdeau hasn't even really gotten going yet, so if he gets going too, it's just a matter of them. They got to beat Edmonton come playoff time, so that's going to be their biggest competitor. So we'll see. That's how they lost last year in the playoffs, and we'll see if they can. That Battle of Alberta, it's definitely going to heat up towards the end of the year, so it'll be fun to watch, that's for sure. We had one more comment. This one, though, was about the Habs regarding Jake Allen's play in net. Jake Allen right now is 8th in the league for goals saved above expected. I know Sergei Samsonov is also up there among the league leaders in that category. So Jake Allen, what are your thoughts on him?
I think for somebody who's filling the void or doing the best they can for somebody like Carey Price, I mean, you're not gonna replace Carey Price because he brought the Canadiens to the Stanley Cup final. A goaltender that doesn't come along that often. So for Jake Allen to do what he's done, and the fact that he's doing what he's doing is really good. And again, I
don't know. I think with him, like the Montreal's been a bit of a surprise this year to me. Everybody thought they'd be really bad again, and so far they've been decent, and he's been a large part of that. He was on that Cup team with St. Louis when they won the Cup, so he's obviously a guy who is a starter-worthy goaltender in the NHL. So it's good to see him doing well. Thank you for commenting on last week's video and last week's podcast. We love hearing from you. Thank you to those two who said they enjoyed the show as well. Thank you guys. I'm glad everyone enjoys listening too.
That's a wrap for week 5. Brought back some segments from previous episodes. I think those are pretty good. Thanks again for your comments this past week, and we will see you all next week.
Oh yeah, it's a spooky week coming up with Halloween, so let's hope we don't have any other spooky injuries happen to the Sens this week, and let's just keep on rolling. Thanks again for listening, and as always, go Sens, go!
Go Leafs! See you next week.